And when it comes to life, of course, a cancer diagnosis, it can profoundly shift a person's outlook on life in multiple ways that you cannot even imagine. And it prompts deep reflection, as we all know. For me, it gave me an increased appreciation of life, for sure. And letting you know that simple joys of life, including a podcast with you, is more important and makes you have a greater focus on living in the moment.
Hello, and welcome to Sitare Spotlight, your go-to podcast for diving deep into the lives, stories, and journeys of some of the most inspiring personalities around us from the South Asian diaspora. I'm your host, Saumya Balasubramanian, and together we'll explore the moments that shaped their dreams, the challenges they faced, and the spark that keeps them shining bright. I'm going to be chatting with technology entrepreneurs, artists, cultural icons in every episode. Their lives inspire us, their journeys give us hope. Let's find out more about them. This is Sitare Spotlight, so please tune in and let's celebrate the brilliance of our community, one star at a time. Sitare Spotlight is brought to you by India Currents. Let's get started. Our guest for today is Shoba Rao. Shoba is a multifaceted personality, and as her friends and family know, a force to reckon with. She's an engineer at heart with a master's in electrical engineering from Stanford University. She's a successful career woman in the tech world and currently serves as director of manufacturing engineering in the lithium-ion battery industry. Shoba is also an author, TEDx speaker, a distinguished Toastmaster, and often shares her life journey in various speeches. Her speeches come from her experience of going through 3 cancers and a kidney transplant at the tender age of 22. Her journey is also chronicled in her book, My Race Against Death. She's very passionate about self-advocacy in healthcare, and her TED Talk is in the description down below. Welcome, Shoba. It's nice to have you on the show. You are a technology leader, and like I said in my introduction, in a fairly different branch of science as such. So, there are very few technology leaders, female technology leaders in your area. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So I did my engineering bachelor's like everyone else back home in India. And I moved to the US in 2000. After a while, I did my master's in Stanford University, as you said, in electrical engineering. So at heart, I am an electrical engineer, regardless of whatever I do in life. And I think like an engineer. I do everything. I approach problems like an engineer in my life. And so that's a brief history of my career and where I am today.
That's amazing, Shoba. But help me understand a little bit. Your career has been far from smooth. We all know that you have a fine mind as an engineer, but still, your health challenges that you faced. You faced a lot of health hurdles from the time you started working, I think, at the age of
Yes.
22. How has that shaped your outlook on life and work in general?
Well, since we started talking about work, let's discuss about how it shaped my outlook at work. I had just started my career, and as you said, when I was 22 years old, and within a year, I was diagnosed with kidney failure. And it gives you a totally different perspective and how you approach work even. And you reevaluate your work-life balance right there because you have to take care of your health. And it tells you that you're not invincible because especially at that age, that's how we all feel, isn't it? And it also gives you an increased compassion and empathy in the workplace and the way you approach problems, the way you coordinate with your colleagues, everything. It changes your view and it makes you think that you have to leave a legacy and maybe get mentored and mentor others so that you do leave a legacy somewhere. And that's where I think my health gave me a different perspective about work.
So
Instead of
your
just looking at
early
it as a career.
exposure to mortality helped shape how
Yes.
you view yourself as a personality inside the work world.
Yes,
What you're trying
yes,
to say.
yes,
That's
yes.
very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to life, of course, a cancer diagnosis, it can profoundly shift a person's outlook on life in multiple ways that you cannot even imagine. And it prompts deep reflection, as we all know. For me, it gave me an increased appreciation of life, for sure. And letting you know that simple joys of life, including a podcast with you, is more important and makes you have a greater focus on living in the moment. And that's the outlook I have in my life right now. And it shifts your priority. And another key thing in the outlook that changed personally for me is living with gratitude and acceptance in life.
So in our chat so far already, there have been some things that you brought up, and I hope we'll be able to touch upon it a little bit more. Right, like you spoke about being present and living in the present. You spoke about gratitude. um, I can see that these are all some of the ideologies that help shape
Mhm.
Shoba Rao, the individual, right?
Mm.
And you are a multifaceted personality, like I said, right? Like, um, you're an author, you're an engineer, you're also a very dedicated friend and family member and all of that. So what are some of the things that helped shape your morality, your ideologies? Because things happen, life happens,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
how we shape ourselves in spite of what it throws us is what makes us. So
Hmm.
can you help throw some light on what it is that helped shape some of your ideologies,
Yeah.
some books, podcasts, anything that really.
Okay. Yes, since we spoke about my diagnosis and my health hurdles, there's one book that inspired, I wouldn't even call it an inspiration. I think that book gave me nirvana, I should say. And people may not expect this book to be the answer for what I'm going to tell you right now. It's the book called A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson.
Bill
I'm
Price.
sure you would have read that book. So
Mm,
it talks about evolution of Earth and the overall history of Earth, actually.
mm,
And the reason why that book affected me a lot is, well, I read that book during one of my diagnoses when I was at a low point in life. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm such a tiny speck in the big scheme of things.
mm,
The Earth is like 4 billion years old, and there has been so much of evolution. And we know we are literally atom molecules, and I'm just like a dust, right? A really tiny speck. And then I realized, okay, this helps me deal with life and death. It tells me, okay, you know what? Don't be so self centered and assume you're so important that you've got to worry about your death and about how to live life. And that actually helped me a lot in dealing with my diagnosis, in dealing with my health hurdles. People often go towards spirituality, and we all do because we reflect a lot when we face hurdles. And personally, for me, this book helped a lot in dealing with those hurdles because it made me realize that whether I'm alive or I'm dead, life goes on. And people will still remember me for what I am. And as I said before, we all leave a legacy. Yes, that's good. But in the overall big scheme of things, it's okay. We can face these hurdles. We fight till we die, pretty much, right? We all do that. And so I think that's one book that affected me a lot. There's one more phrase, and
mm.
I want to say about that phrase. This is from the book Dune, and it's one of my most favorite books. Just as a fiction book, it is very good on how they have thought. But then there is this saying written by Frank Herbert, that the saying in the book is that I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. And I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. Man, what a phrase that is. Because it tells you you don't have to fear fear. Because anything that you're afraid of, that actually kills you from within. So the fact that if you're not afraid of anything, if you don't fear, you're able to take it over, then you can pretty much fight and face anything in life. So these are two things, these two books, I should say. It might sound very different than what others would think in their path to spirituality. For me, these were two books and these particular lines that actually got me through. And I really appreciate those authors for writing those books. And
Amazing.
ideology wise, and I know we did speak about ideology, there are two things in my ideology. One is about facing life, of course, that is always there. But feminism is another major ideology of
Mm.
mine because it's focused on gender equality. And coming from where I am, I come from a family of three daughters, including my two sisters, and my dad inculcated this ideology within us from childhood.
Yeah, seeing he was outnumbered by all of you powerful folks around.
Yes, exactly. So it's amazing how these things influence us from childhood, isn't it?
Right.
So the our background and the way we grow actually influences our ideologies too. So feminism is one, and the other one is being service oriented. That is another thing that was inculcated into me right from childhood, and and these are two things I firmly believe in till today.
I really loved your answer. What about the book and the short history of nearly everything for the humility it gives us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
perspective that it helps shift in us. And your quote about fear, because it sort of acknowledged the presence of it. And the particular quote you had chosen actually said, let it flow through you,
Yes.
you process your fear. Everybody has it, right? Like that simple acknowledgement is powerful.
Yeah.
You wrote about your um, your life journey, your crippling diagnosis of kidney failure at the age of 22, multiple recurrences of cancer, and all of this in your lovely book, A Race Against Death. Now, the medical community, right, by and large, it's fantastic in the US. And in India too, I think, where you've faced a lot of your challenges. Um, Help us understand a little bit more about knowing the different kinds of treatment options available to us, the importance of second opinions. Um, because when something happens, it can all be a little overwhelming, right? And when you're already in a vulnerable situation, it's very hard to decide what to do next. And at that time, if somebody were to give us in simple steps, these are the things you could do, that would be amazing. So, can you help us a little about how you navigated all of this?
Sure. So in fact, I do mention this in my book as well,
Hmm.
because my whole book is based on the lessons I have learned during my health hurdles, and every chapter I have a lesson written there. And one of them is make a plan. So when we imagine if you're getting a diagnosis, which is something like cancer, which can actually paralyze you when you hear a diagnosis like that, right? So our first approach is one of denial
Hmm.
before we even accept such a diagnosis. But what I would say in terms of treatment options, as you were asking, is first and foremost, yes, go to your doctor and find out everything about your disease. So it is important for us to understand what we have, what type of disease we have, and how to approach it while talking to your doctor or any other medical professional you're approaching. Once you understand what you're facing, it makes it easy for you to accept it and then look out for treatment options. So, number one is acceptance and understanding your disease. And once you understand your disease, you make a plan and figure out, now how do I go for treatments? And now when you go for treatments, for example, since we spoke about cancer, let's say if you're diagnosed with cancer, then the first and foremost you say, okay, do I have I ensured that I have gone through all the necessary scans? Have I ensured, have I talked to my doctor, asked the right questions to my doctor, and uh, discussed enough with the medical team to make sure that the diagnosis is right, and have I gone through everything? So that would be step number one. Once you understand the disease, then number two, as you said, getting second opinions. Because, like, remember, don't get I always tell this, let us not get intimidated either by the disease or by medical professionals. Doctor's office, we often tend to forget whatever we had, all the questions we had the moment we see them. That's what I mean by intimidated, right? So when you go there, ensure that you have your questions written down and you have checked everything. And most of the doctors we have, they're all good. There is no problem. But that said, people can make mistakes, because at the end of the day, like I am an engineer, that's another profession where someone is a doctor. So understand that you are always, you are the patient, so you have to go for a second opinion. If you think that you didn't get all the answers that you wanted, immediately go for a second opinion and check with someone else. Now, after that, now you have fully understood what you're facing. You have, okay, these are the treatment options that you have been given. I have checked with 2 3 medical professionals, and this is the way I have to go. Now I make a plan on how I have to get treated. And remember what I'm saying here, I'm using the word I a lot, more than you, because if I am the one facing the disease, I think I have to make the decision. So remember, like, you have to make the decision for what you're facing. So number one, don't get phased by what you're facing. Look out for treatment options, go for second opinions, don't get intimidated, and make a plan. And there you go.
That's amazing. Now, navigating tricky healthy situations, like you said, it can be scary for everyone. And, the journey from denial to understanding to acceptance can take as
Oh,
much
yeah.
time as it takes, depending on
Yes.
the personality themselves, right? But one of the things while you were talking, where you said I am the patient, I have to be fully aware of what it is that I'm getting into. Help us understand a little bit about the self advocacy that you're talking about here. Because, like you said, it is, depending on the personality, it is easy to get bogged down. It is easy to get worried and let the fear overtake you. At what point do you start to balance what it is that you think is good for you as a patient against what it is that's being told to you by the medical community?
I so let's talk about self-advocacy. Um, and as you know, Saumya, I am, it might sound cliched, I am an advocate for self-advocacy because I strongly advise people to speak up, because being self-informed is the key. If you are not informed about whatever it is you're facing, it could be health, it could be even at your work, when in your career, you have to be self-informed so that you can make a rational and a logical decision. When it comes to health, often we are overwhelmed with emotions.
True.
So the very first thing that hits you is an emotion, be it fear, be it denial, uh, be it panic, whatever it could be, right? The very first thing that hits you is all these emotions. So let it is similar to what I said before, let it go through. Yes, feel the emotion. We are human beings after all, so we have to feel that emotion. But somewhere after feeling that, give it few weeks, or if it's a month for you, depending on where you are, what your threshold is, take the next step on being rational and logical about what you're facing, right? And that's where self advocacy comes. You have to have the rational, where you understand that you are the captain of your ship and you have to take the reins and you have to be in the driver's seat, because expressing your needs and desires is part of self advocacy as well. So you need to ensure that you express what you are looking for to your doctor when it comes to your health. And that takes you one step further, faster than it would if you were not able to express. And number two is building confidence. Because the moment you start advocating for yourself, it gives you a sense of empowerment and boosts your self confidence, right? Think about this. If we have when you're faced with diagnosis, when you're faced with any type of disease, the moment you are self-informed, you understand your disease, it boosts your confidence immediately, right? You feel like you are empowered and you're asking the right questions. The moment you get the answers, now you are confident enough to go through treatments. So it's an avalanche effect, it's a cumulative effect. The moment you express your needs and you keep yourself self-informed, and you build, and that builds your confidence. So these are some key concepts for self-advocacy. Of course, speaking up is the major one, but other than that, these two are something that I would say is a, a concept of self-advocacy leading to a successful life.
I loved how you said being self informed and processing the information, and then using the combination of these two to build your confidence, right?
Mhm.
And helping that to propel you through what is going to be a transformative process in your life. I love the answer, and I hope that it resonates and it helps others who are
Yes.
in difficult situations, gain that confidence that they need, that it is possible. Every single thing is one step at a time, one breath at a time, and we can move through this, right? Um, so thank you for that, Shoba. I know that you are a person who not only believes in giving back. You had answered in a previous answer also about service oriented nature of yours, and one of the things that helped that your father helped shape for you. um, I know that we have a lot of role models of giving in our world. We're really lucky about that, right? Like,
Mhm.
honestly,
Mhm.
the Cancer Institute Foundation in India. You are the one who introduced us to many people in the Bay Area to SIF, actually,
Mhm.
and I've been always impressed and inspired by all the people who put in the time and the energy selflessly uh, to make sure that treatment options are available for people around the world. So tell us a little bit, not only about Cancer Institute Foundation in India, but also about how people can contribute to a good cause and how it sort of enlarges your sense of being, right? Because I think that's what it
Yes.
does.
Yes, yes, it does. It- you know, if you uh, if you read Ayn Rand's book, she talks about capitalism a lot. She's known for that. But then the crux of that book, if I remember, I mean, I don't remember the exact lines, but she talks about being selfish.
That's why I was a little surprised when you started off with Ayn Rand, because
That
she's
is the
known for
thing.
being selfish. And
That's exactly, yeah, yeah.
I
As
mean,
I said,
her
my
books are
concepts
all
are very
about,
different.
you.
So when you help others, the reason, if you see where I'm going with this, when you help others, it actually makes you feel good,
True.
right?
Yes.
That's what I was going for.
Oh, God.
So, so there is some amount of selfishness in that as well. So at the end of the day, most of us Yes, as much as we do service, we have to look after ourselves too. And I think for one's mental well being, it's important that you volunteer and you do service for others. And I think because I think it helps you be a better person, it helps you have a good mental health. That before finally it all boils down to you being happy. So think about it that way when you volunteer. So,
Thank you, Shoba.
sure.
And that wraps up another illuminating episode of Sitare Spotlight. Thank you so much for joining me today and for being part of these heartfelt conversations. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Shoba's incredible journey as much as I did. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. You can also follow India Currents on social media. Remember, every story matters and every voice has the power to inspire. Until next time, keep shining, keep striving, and let your star illuminate the world. This is Sitare Spotlight, and I'm Saumya, signing off until next time.